following recording is a production of Kicking Out at 2 in conjunction with the WrestleMania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network and is intended for private use only. For more information, head on over to facebook.com/Kicking Out at 2 or our Twitter handle @KickingOut2, along with searching Retromania with a W on any and all podcast platforms available to listen to archive shows such as this and all the great content of the Retromania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network. Evergreen content at your fingertips anytime at your listening pleasure. And with that being said, we thank you for listening and hope you enjoy the show.
What's up, everyone? Thank you for pressing play, hitting download, liking, subscribing, and rating and reviewing this podcast known as Kicking Out at 2. I'm your host, Dave Rosenbluth, and this is the return of the Blind Date Diaries concept. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Blind Date Diaries was a concept I implemented on the podcast a few years ago where I would take a pay-per-view, a show, something that was on Peacock, the network, wherever, and I would watch it for the very first time. Something I'd never watched before. You would think with all my wrestling knowledge that I would have watched just about everything that's out there. However, I have not. So I would take a show, a pay-per-view, I would watch it from cover to cover, and then I would review it for all of you. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of bring back the Blind Date Diaries concept. Dennis was originally supposed to join me. Unfortunately, he's under the weather. It's that time of year. Here in the Northeast, it's been in the teens, negatives, below zero. Most of the country's been pretty cold. Even parts of Florida was accumulating snow more north. So it's been a rough winter. And Dennis, unfortunately, a little under the weather, couldn't make it. But I'm going to do this one solo, as I've done in the past. And we're going to be covering WCW SuperBrawl 6 from February the 11th, 1996, the 30th anniversary, as I'm recording today, of that show. It's infamously known for the breaking of the fourth wall moment from Brian Pillman, where he tells everyone, he's wrestling Kevin Sullivan in an I Quit or I Respect You Booker. Excuse me, I'm tongue-tied here. It's a strap match, and it's kind of like an I Quit strap match, and I'll get into that shortly. And Pillman kind of breaks the fourth wall, and you're kind of wondering what exactly is going on. Was that part of the show? Is this a real-life thing? And that's what this show is pretty much known for. This show is headlined by 2 steel cage matches, 2 tag team championship matches, 2 strap matches. So it seems like if at first you don't succeed, try again when it comes to this show. So I'm going to be recapping that shortly for all of you. But before we do all that, you know what time it is. It's time for me to plug the social media. It's time for me to plug where you can find this podcast, which is over on Podbean by searching Retromania with a W as a part of the Retromania Pro Wrestling Podcast Network. This podcast, along with Cool Truth, Marking Out the Days, Gaijin Wrestling Radio, all kinds of great... Hulkamania is Dead, which I believe is making a comeback, if I'm not mistaken. And so much other great nostalgic wrestling content at your fingertips over there. You can find this show and all those great shows over there by searching Retromania with a W. You can find us on Facebook, Kicking Out at 2, facebook.com/Kicking Out at 2. Hit the like button, follow us, be a part of all the fun. I try to bring up some engaging conversations from the nostalgic wrestling world and some of the current stuff as well. So you can find us over there, as well as our Twitter handle. It's not X, it's Twitter in my world, okay? At Kicking Out 2, KICKNOUT and the number 2. I'm tweeting over there. I'm doing what I can, posting articles, pictures, engagements. Be a part of the fun. Help me create the fun on both of our social media pages. So head on over there. All right. Before I get into SuperBrawl, I wanted to talk a little bit about the WrestleMania build that has taken place within the last couple of weeks. Roman Reigns won the Royal Rumble, and he's calling his shot against CM Punk for the World Heavyweight Championship. It was an excellent setup for their main event on Monday Night Raw just a few weeks ago. So that's looking to be the Night 2 WrestleMania main event. I'll be honest with you, I'm excited for it. I thought that the interaction that Punk and Roman had at Survivor Series a couple of years ago when they tagged in the War Games and the stuff that they were doing in the shark cage before they got involved, I thought that was pretty fun stuff. Allegedly, some of those engagements that took place received 96 million impressions in under a 12-hour period. on social media. So I think that was the litmus test that they passed successfully to determine if Punk and Roman was going to be a future WrestleMania main event. And last year they were part of the night one main event with Seth Rollins in that triple threat match, which was a hell of a match. But this year it looks like they're going to be closing out night two for the world title. And like I said, excited for it, pretty pumped. And to be perfectly honest with you, most of the wrestling world is pretty pumped, to the point where there's a lot of fan backlash online that I've seen regarding the possibility of adding Finn Balor to the mix. Finn Balor is scheduled to face CM Punk for the World Heavyweight title at the Elimination Chamber event in the next couple of weeks. It's in Punk's hometown of Chicago. And a lot of fans online are speculating, or kind of hoping, I should say, not speculating, but they're hoping that Balor could be included in a triple threat and give him something meaningful at WrestleMania. Now, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be terribly upset to see it. However, I think it's quite the jump from Finn Balor, who was a tag team member, a part of a group called the Judgment Day, to main eventing WrestleMania. That's a huge jump. Unless they're going to create that underdog storyline, which they've done in the past, but I don't know if it's going to necessarily be successful for someone the caliber of Finn Balor. If anything, I see Finn and Dominic Mysterio kind of having something going on at WrestleMania. I don't know if it's going to be a match or maybe even like a singles match or a tag match, but I'm guessing that Finn's days in the Judgment Day and his alliance with Dominic Mysterio we're near the end of that. So I don't necessarily think it's a good idea if they were to put Balor in a triple threat with Punk and Roman. I think it would kind of take away from the big WrestleMania money match that is Punk and Roman. Now, speaking of Punk and Roman, Balor isn't the only person that fans are kind of lobbying and petitioning for on social media to be a part of the World Heavyweight Championship main event. The other individual is Seth Rollins, who allegedly is scheduled to return in time for a match at WrestleMania. Now, the original rumor was it was going to be him and Braun Breaker. However, Braun Breaker suffered a serious hernia injury. He had emergency surgery recently. Some are saying he could be out for up to 6 weeks. Some could say he could be out for 12 weeks, 4 or 5 months. I don't truly know. Now, including Rollins in Punk and Roman, I wouldn't have a problem with that because of the history that both of them have. And it kind of seems to be on brand with Rollins' character to kind of interject himself in things. He's got a documented history with Roman from their days in the Shield. He's got a documented history with Punk in the last year, defeating him multiple times in championship scenarios, one being the Money in the Bank cash-in at SummerSlam, which I was in attendance for. Pretty fun moment to be a part of. So if Breaker's out, okay, if Braun Breaker is out of WrestleMania and he's not going to be taking part in it because of the injury, then I would not have an issue with Seth Rollins being shoehorned into the match. I mean, Rollins has enough of an argument to make, as in kayfabe terms. He never got beaten for the championship. He was World Heavyweight Champion and he was out with an injury. He never got beaten for the title. So you can make the argument that Rollins can lobby himself into the championship match with Punk and Roman, which would then be a repeat of last year, but this time for the title. And it would center around the title more so than it would be centered around Paul Heyman and the favor that he owed CM Punk by being his manager at last year's WrestleMania for that one night in the main event. So I wouldn't be terribly upset with it. I think it's more ideal, though, if Rollins were to come back to be included in something with the Vision. With Breaker out, I think maybe putting him in a big WrestleMania match with Bronson Reed would be ideal. We kind of saw Reed on the recent episode of Raw step up in Breaker's absence, and I think maybe that is the first sign that they could be leaning towards Rollins and Bronson Reed at WrestleMania. Now, we have to take into account this whole Masked Man thing that began at Survivor Series, revealing one of the Masked Men to be Austin Theory, but there was a new Masked Man that was revealed, that appeared at Royal Rumble, costing Breakker his opportunity. And from what I understand, from what I've been reading, the rumor out there is that it was designed to be Seth Rollins. So maybe they're going to still continue this Masked Man thing. I know they did it recently on Raw, costing Austin Theory a shot in the Elimination Chamber, helping LA Knight get the win. So maybe we'll see Rollins and Bronson Reed, Rollins being revealed as the mask guy. I wouldn't count out LA Knight being a part of this somehow, considering he's pretty much been responsible for the setbacks that the Vision has taken place recently for that group. So maybe we get some sort of tag match. Maybe it's a Logan Paul and a Bronson Reed against Seth Rollins and LA Knight in a tag match. And LA Knight and Seth Rollins have a history with each other stemming from over the summer. LA Knight getting a pinfall victory over Rollins and being involved in the championship picture. I could see something where those two are reluctant to team together, but they have one common enemy, and that's the Vision, and they're willing to put their differences aside to take them out. Speaking of Logan Paul, there's a rumor that he could be involved in a major WrestleMania match with none other than Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, for those of you that are new to the podcast or new to pop culture or who have just been living under a rock, he's been a controversial figure in the last few weeks. His appearance at the was part of the Super Bowl halftime show, created somewhat of a division amongst certain political parties and people representing certain political parties and ideologies and things like that. And I'm not going to get into, whether you agree or disagree that he was part of the Super Bowl halftime show. But nonetheless, he's a huge WWE fan, and every time he has done stuff with WWE, it's been a home run for sure. His first WrestleMania appearance a few years ago, he teamed with Damian Priest against The Miz and Morrison at WrestleMania 37. Had a great showing there. And then the street fight in Puerto Rico against Damian Priest at Backlash a couple of years ago, that was a lot of fun. So there might be an opportunity to do something with him and Logan Paul. I know that Logan Paul and him in more recent years, in the last couple of years, have in various interviews or podcasts have kind of traded, not cheap shots, but, little jabs back and forth about who's the better celebrity wrestler, who's the better celebrity to come into WWE and put on a great performance. And so that could be the premise. Here's an idea that I kind of drummed up in my head regarding Logan Paul and Bad Bunny. What if Bad Bunny was actually the Masked Man? And what if Bad Bunny was just trying to go after Logan Paul this entire time, and he was costing the Vision multiple opportunities, and he was just trying to get to Logan Paul by going through them? That would be interesting. But that's another rumor. Bad Bunny and Logan Paul, I could see that. That would be a huge spectacle. I could, maybe with like a Rey Mysterio in Bad Bunny's corner as like his corner man. You kind of have, him. He's like the star of the wrestling star of that presentation. And then on the other side, you got Logan Paul, and maybe you put like Bronson Reed in his corner, or even Paul Heyman from the Vision. Kind of jazz up that match a little bit because you got two guys who they are great performers and great athletes in this realm, but they're not experienced full time in a pro wrestling setting. So maybe a one-on-one match might not be ideal. Maybe a tag team match of sorts with Logan Paul and, let's say, Bronson Reed against Bad Bunny and Rey Mysterio, or Logan Paul, Reed, and Austin Theory against Bad Bunny, Rey Mysterio, and Penta, because Penta's been kind of involved in the Vision. Either way, it would be cool. I've enjoyed Bad Bunny's performances. I wasn't really too familiar with his music. I'm not really familiar with it now. I don't listen to that kind of music. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But from his time appearing in WWE, like I said, he's hit a home run, and I think it would create a mainstream buzz for WrestleMania if you put Bad Bunny in a match, whether it's a singles match, a tag match. If you advertise him to be a part of it, I'm willing to bet that not only people will pay to see him, and then buy a ticket, but a lot more people will watch the event just because of that. So, and then the final WrestleMania rumor that I'd been seeing out there, I just saw that this morning, was the possibility of WWE management running Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre one more time for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania, but this time inside Hell in a Cell. Now, the Observer and other outlets, various outlets, have been reporting that the plan is Cody and Drew in some fashion, possibly including Jacob Fatu in a triple threat match. I'm not totally sold on that idea. I think Drew is in a position where they're still building and making him as champion. I mean, he has done a tremendous job since he won the title back at the beginning of January against Cody Rhodes in the 3 Stages of Hell match. And I think putting Drew with someone that's either on his par or beneath him, but I hate to use that term, beneath him, but under him, I don't like using that term either. Anyway, someone that's not on his level. I think Drew needs to work with guys that are either on his level or above him. And Cody is above him. Okay? Randy Orton is above him. Roman Reigns is above him. So I wasn't too thrilled with and these are all just rumors. Who knows if this is even true? This could be a smokescreen that's going to play out on WWE Unreal Season 3 on Netflix. Because that's what we do. This is what we do. We take the dirt sheets and we make them cry like little bitches, because that's what we do. WWE Unreal Season 3. Are you ready? Yeah, that's my Triple H impression. Anyhow, I wasn't really sold on the idea of Drew and Cody, especially coming out of a 3 Stages of Hell match. That should have been the finality of it. But if you throw in Hell in the Cell and you bill this as the final match between these two, the final encounter, the one to settle it all at WrestleMania, I can get behind it. 100% I can get behind it. And it kind of, this rumor kind of holds water to what Cody's promo was recently on SmackDown, where he said that Drew wasn't going to make it to WrestleMania. And so maybe they do go forward with Cody and Drew in a singles for the championship inside Hell in the Cell. That would mean that this week Cody would have to win the triple threat against Jacob Fatu and Sami Zayn to enter the chamber match, and then he would have to win the chamber match. I kind of think that's the direction they're going in. I will say a lot of speculation out there that Cody and Randy Orton might be the championship match at WrestleMania. Now, I wouldn't be against that either. There's ready-made, layers of storytelling that have played out with Cody and Randy in the last couple of years. I mean, Randy helped Cody against, Solo and his Timu bloodline and protected him there. Randy was the one that kind of took the bullet for Cody when Kevin Owens lost his mind and broke up that friendship. And they were in a heated rivalry for quite some time. Randy didn't pull the trigger on Cody during their King of the Ring finals match in Saudi Arabia last year. And Cody ended up taking the advantage and winning the King of the Ring tournament to earn the championship match at SummerSlam last summer against John Cena. And Randy's desire to just win a championship for the 15th time and trying to break the world championship record. Their history together as a part of the Legacy group. There's so much meat on that bone, as they like to say, that I wouldn't be opposed to Cody and Randy, championship or not, at WrestleMania. However, I think if they're going to do Cody and Drew, and it's in Hell in the Cell, and it's for the championship, and they bill it as like a final encounter, then the next best thing for Randy Orton, in my opinion, is to be the one that's revealed as the attacker of Jacob Fatu. Okay? And then they have a match at WrestleMania. because I think they want to build. They're obviously wanting to build Jake up into a main event talent. They want him to be, in the championship picture. And I think working with someone like Randy Orton is gonna benefit him tremendously, especially at a WrestleMania. A few months back, Jacob Fatu declared his intentions on television to compete for the championship. He kind of confronted Cody. He was scheduled to have a match with Drew. That match didn't take place because they found Jacob Fatu laid out backstage. He was off television for a few months. He returned, and he got involved in the Cody-Drew championship match, inadvertently helping Drew win the title. And then that created issues with him and Cody. Now, I think why Orton would... Here's a couple of reasons why I think Orton would be the better choice as Jacob Fatu's attacker. Number one, on television commentary, when Jacob Fatu has been on screen, when he's interacted with Drew, they've carefully worded they've carefully worded the whole attacker angle, where they have said that Jacob thinks Drew did it, allegedly, but it's not been proven that Drew had done it. Okay? I think that leaves things open-ended, and that's a good thing. Now, as far as Orton goes, okay, this would be my route and my direction, okay? I'm not saying that this is where they're going to go, but this would be where my direction is. Orton attacked Jacob Fatu so that he could protect Cody, because Orton wants to be the one to beat Cody for the championship. And because Cody lost the title, okay, to Drew, that screwed up everything. And then the interaction they had in the Royal Rumble a couple of weeks ago where Cody accidentally gave Randy Orton the Cody cutter. And then maybe a dust-up inside the Elimination Chamber. And Orton reveals himself to be the attacker of Jacob Fatu at some point down the line. Or maybe Orton Orton is involved in screwing over Jacob Fatu from getting inside the Elimination Chamber. I don't know. But I think that's the direction I would go in, where Orton attacks Fatu because he was trying to protect Cody. Because selfishly, he wanted to be champion, and he wanted to be the one to beat Cody Rhodes. So either way, I think they've done a good job early on so far with the WrestleMania build-up, where they are giving us different avenues and different options as to where they could go with some of the big-name matches. And I'll get into more of that as the weeks go on. All right, let's get into this Super Brawl 6 recap here. Blind Date Diary, Super Brawl 6, February 11th, 1996. From the Bayfront Center in St. Petersburg, Florida, with an attendance of roughly 7,200 people, and 210,000 homes purchased this on pay-per-view. The opening video runs down the card as we are introduced by Tony Schiavone along with Bobby the Brain Heenan and the American Dream Dusty Rhodes on the call. Always like the three of them together as a three-man trio in the booth. Sometimes three-man groups aren't exactly the best. They kind of step over each other, but these three had great chemistry. I really enjoyed when they were calling WCW pay-per-view events. Double main event, 2 steel cages, Ric Flair, Randy Savage, world title, Hulk Hogan versus the Giant in the other cage match. And we kick things off with a street fight, our first match on the card. Public Enemy against the Nasty Boys. And as Taz would say, there's no warming up in the bullpen. These guys just went right at it. Chairs, tables, a lot of the table spots got some good pops. This was not your typical WCW match. This was the early influence, I believe, of ECW in the mainstream. Public Enemy, an ECW mainstay for quite some time, signed with WCW not long before this event. And this was Eric Bischoff and others, taking that style of wrestling that ECW presented and putting it on their programming. There was really nothing pretty about this match. It's what you'd expect from these two. It resembled pretty much a wild fight everywhere. We got some split screen action from production from time to time, showing both teams pretty much fighting anywhere but the ring. And apparently this is a Falls Count Anywhere's match, so go figure. The finish comes at 7 minutes 49 seconds when Rocco Rock has Brian Knobbs on the merchandise table. He goes for a somersault off the balcony, but Knobbs moves. Rocco Rock, he pretty much eats most of the floor. He grazes the table enough to break it, but really the majority of the impact was on the floor. Knobs would then take a piece of that broken table and use it to splash Rocco Rock for the cover and the victory. Your winners, the Nasty Boys. Fun little match between them, and I thought it was a nice way to open up the pay-per-view with a personal rivalry, just kind of going wild. It was a good way to start the show. Mean Gene's backstage, plugging the hotline, and he's discussing the rumor of 2 former world champions leaving the World Wrestling Federation. Now, speculation in hindsight, he's probably talking about Hall and Nash, who would leave the WWF just a few months later. So go figure. He brings in Conan, who is the United States champion, to discuss his match with the one-man gang. Funny about this, as I'm watching this, Conan looks like he is reading off of a teleprompter. Like there's a teleprompter down below behind the camera that he is reading off of. It couldn't be any more obvious. And for a guy who's known for, his chops on the mic, I thought this was uncharacteristic of him. But maybe he developed that later in his career. Who knows? Our second match, Johnny B. Bad with the Diamond Doll Kimberly taking on Diamond Dallas Page for the WCW Television Championship, and that giant check of what's left of the $6.6 million that Kimberly won that's currently in Page's possession. Page, he tried to smooth talk Kimberly with a dozen roses to start off, but Johnny B. Bad steps in and they begin fighting on the outside. These two got good chemistry together, I must say. And they've had numerous pay-per-view matches, and just they didn't disappoint. Both guys worked really hard in this match. I thought Page played the desperate, manipulative ex-boyfriend trying to win his girl back. I thought he did a good job playing that role. Several near falls down the stretch that led to a tombstone pile driver from Johnny B. Bad to Diamond Dallas Page for the win at 14 minutes and 59 seconds. Still, your WCW television champion and $6.6 million richer, Johnny B. Bad. Like I said, good match. There's no complaints from me. I thought, Johnny B. Bad, very underrated, I must say. I talked about it on my last recording with Dennis when we watched the 98 Royal Rumble and Mark Merrow was involved in the match. He really held it down on the undercard for them. If you needed to open a show hot, you put him in there. No complaints. Johnny B. Bad, severely underrated in terms of a character and his skill in the ring. And unfortunately, when he came to WWF, obviously he couldn't take the Johnny B. Bad character with him, and that just did not translate very well with the wild man, Mark Merrow. But yeah, this here, definitely some of his better stuff. And Page, he looked like he was coming into his own as an in-ring performer. So, good match all around. Backstage, Mean Gene is with Harlem Heat to discuss their World Tag Team Championship match against Sting and Lex Luger. And the winning team will then go on to face the Road Warriors later in the evening. Commentary, Shivani, Dusty, Bobby, they speculate about the issues between Sting and Luger heading into the match, which leads us to our third match for the World Tag Team Championship. Harlem Heat taking on Sting and Lex Luger for the WCW World Tag Team Championship. The passive-aggressive tension with Sting and Luger remains the focal point of this match, which it doesn't make Harlem Heat look second fiddle, but they look more opportunistic as they pretty much had control of the match at like a very slow and methodical pace, isolating Luger a lot from Sting in their corner. I thought that was good psychology. I think they were trying to babyface Luger more because Luger was a heel at the time, and they had this running thing on television where can Sting trust Luger? I mean, Luger had kind of, had issues with Sting's friends, Hogan and Savage, and Sting was kind of sticking up for Luger, but also recognizing how Hogan and Savage felt. So I think this was an attempt for them to, this is my opinion just watching this, but this looked like an attempt for them to babyface Luger, to kind of build some, dump some heat on him, give him some sympathy by Harlem Heat kind of taking advantage of him during the match. Referee tries to restore order on the outside with Sting and Booker T. Stevie Ray has Luger set up for a powerbomb, but Road Warrior Animal enters and nails Stevie with some sort of lead pipe object. Luger then capitalizes with a cover as the referee makes the count for the win at 11 minutes and 49 seconds. Your winners, and still WCW World Tag Team Champions Sting and Lex Luger. This wasn't a terrible match, but I get it due to the stipulation with the Road Warriors and timing. They had to kind of cut this short. I would have liked to have seen this go a few minutes longer. Mean Gene's at the top of the ramp with Sting and Lex Luger, and he tries to talk to them about the Road Warriors' interference, but Sting and Luger are just too excited over their win, and they kind of brush Gene off, which I thought was interesting. Our fourth match on the card. Conan defending the WCW United States Championship against the one-man gang representing the Dungeon of Doom. Who thought this was a good idea? I mean, seriously, who did? Who thought this was a great idea? Now, I don't have a problem with Conan as a performer. I get they were trying to add some sort of international flavor to the broadcast. This was part of Bischoff's vision of WCW at the time, kind of making it a variety show and giving us some international flavor. I don't have a problem with that. But pairing him up with One Man Gang, this just was not a good match. And I'm guessing One Man Gang was a part of that group of the Hulk Hogan and Friends tour that all got contracts thanks to Hulk. So, yeah, this match went 7 minutes and 27 seconds, and it was 7 minutes, 27 seconds too long. The finish comes when Conan delivers a top rope flying somersault onto Gang for the win, and he is still your United States champion. Thank God. That was pretty bad. All right, next up, Mean Gene's backstage, plugging the hotline again, and then the Road Warriors come to discuss their World Tag Team title match against Sting. Typical promo from these guys, loud, energetic, more loud, Hawk and Animal. Well, it seems to be that it seems to be. SummerSlam 1991 for those of you that don't get the reference. Anyhow, all right, next up. This is where things get a little weird. Our fifth match, the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan, taking on Brian Pillman in an I Respect You strap match. Now, this is a combination of a strap match, I Quit match. Instead of saying I quit, you got to tell the guy that you respect him. Pillman runs down to the ring with a strap, and Sullivan charges at him to begin the match. Both guys got some stiff shots in each other. And this is, like I said, this is infamous for the I Respect You Booker Man line from Pillman, followed by him walking out of the match. Now, was it a work? Was it a shoot? I'll get into that in a minute. That portion of the match went 59 seconds, which I kind of wish they gave that amount of time to One Man Gang and Conan in the previous match. As we see Arn Anderson in civilian clothes coming out to make sense of all this. Sullivan whips him with the strap, which leads us to our next match. Arn Anderson and Kevin Sullivan in a strap match. Sullivan gets some good lashes in on Arn with the strap. One in particular, oh my goodness, right on the back of his head. Holy cow. It was pretty gnarly looking. Arn gets a few licks in with the strap as well. Jimmy Hart then comes racing down the aisle with Ric Flair to calm the situation and try to assemble some peace between the Dungeon of Doom and the Four Horsemen. Flair says they need to focus on eliminating Hogan and Savage. And then Arn says he will get in bed with the devil himself if it means getting rid of Hulk Hogan and Arn Anderson as he shakes Kevin Sullivan's hand. And the match ends in a no contest at 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Still one of the big mysteries in wrestling history. Was it a work? Was it a shoot? Now, you could make an argument that, Pillman walking out, I mean, he really drew that line, with his loose cannon character. For years, I felt this was definitely a shoot. Like, they wouldn't allow that sort of language on television. And then I remember the Brian Pillman documentary that was a DVD. I believe I'm not sure if it's part of their. It might be on their Vault channel. I'm not sure. It's a good watch. And Eric Bischoff was interviewed, and Bischoff had revealed in the interview that him and Pillman had orchestrated this character shift, like more so Pillman, but Bischoff was kind of involved in it as well. For Pillman to then go to ECW, only to come back to WCW. And it was going to be this like unpredictable, loose cannon character where you didn't really know whether that was real or not, whether Pillman was either putting on a show or if he was legit. And so back then, when I remember watching that interview, I thought to myself, "Nah, this is just Bischoff saving face because one of the boys got him." But after watching this match and the way it all orchestrated and went down, the commentary was kind of involved. Anderson came out, which I don't get why. If this was real, why would Arn Anderson have come out? I mean, I guess you could make an argument that management told him, "Hey, let's go fix this. Brian screwed up. Let's go fix this." Arn, go out there, do something. But then they got Flair involved later, and Flair was kind of tying it into a storyline, and they were going to all, broker peace. I mean, maybe it was a shoot. Maybe originally Flair was supposed to come out and he was supposed to broker this peace between Pillman and Sullivan. But I lean more towards that this was a worked shoot, that they originally planned for this to go down and make it look like this wasn't supposed to be part of the show. Yeah. What's your take on it? I mean, you could make an argument for both sides. Pillman wouldn't come back to WCW after that. He went to ECW, had a very brief run there, the Humvee accident, shattering his ankle, and then he was a part of the World Wrestling Federation, and we all know how that run went. So, Mean Gene's backstage with Jimmy Hart and the Giant, hyping up the steel cage match with Hulk Hogan later in the evening, which leads us to our 7th match. Sting and Lex Luger against the Road Warriors for the World Tag Team Championship. Now, I'll be honest with you, the only saving grace for this match was, as a young Dave Rosenbluth, I didn't really care for Sting and Luger as this, good guy, bad guy combo tag team. I always wanted my good guys separated from my bad guys, and I thought that, at some point Sting would have to realize that, hey, Lex Luger is not a good guy. But 43-year-old Dave Rosenbluth, after watching this, I really dug it. I thought that they did a great job, both roles. I thought Luger played a slimy heel very well, enough to convince Sting that, he was still a good guy, and I thought Sting, playing the good friend. I just thought it worked. Luger can't get in the ring because the Road Warriors won't let him in. He walks to the back. Sting convinces him to come back. Really kind of playing up the whole, Luger's been a target by numerous people, and he's the only friend he's got in the world is Sting to defend him. And now Sting is feeling that pressure, and Sting kind of forces Luger's hand to, all right, we need to get this shit done. I thought that played out really well. As far as the match goes, I'll be honest with you, not sure what to make of this. The crowd seemed indecisive. You get chants for the Road Warriors, but then they would pop for Sting's offensive maneuvers. Honestly, I was expecting more of an action-packed match. I was expecting more energy from these two teams. It seemed to start and stop. Just didn't click with me, especially with the caliber of performers all four of these guys are. The finish ends up being a double countout at 13 minutes and 55 seconds, much to the dismay of the fans in attendance. I'll be honest with you, I was disappointed in this match. I really was. On paper, when you look at it, Sting and Lex Luger versus the Road Warriors, man, this is going to be like a battle. And this was anything but that. I don't know if it was fatigue from Sting and Luger for working on a match earlier in the night. I just don't know if they had good chemistry. I'm not quite sure. Mean Gene's backstage with Ric Flair and Woman to discuss the upcoming World Heavyweight Championship cage match with the Macho Man Randy Savage. Then we get a commercial for WCW Uncensored, followed by Mean Gene with Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth discussing the cage match with Ric Flair. Pretty much this is how it went. Flair told Elizabeth, you're going to be with me because I'm a real man. Savage told Flair, not this time, brother. I'm the World Heavyweight Champion, like it or not. This is my little girl, Miss Elizabeth. We're divorced, but we're better than ever, uh-huh. If you don't believe me, go back and watch it. Which leads us to our next match, the 8th match on the card, part of the double main event. Macho Man Randy Savage, champion, accompanied by Miss Elizabeth, with Ric Flair, who's accompanied by Woman, for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. These two have always had great chemistry, and this match showed. Crowd was really into it. It was good back and forth, action between both these guys. Some notable moments in this match saw Savage attempt a top of the, double axe handle off the top of the cage to Flair, but Flair slowed him down and stopped him. I was a little confused, a couple instances here with the referee. The referee was forcing Flair to break the figure 4 leg lock in a cage match. I thought cage matches, there was no disqualification. Meanwhile, earlier in the match, or right at the beginning of the match, Flair assaulted the referee, and he wasn't disqualified. So you didn't care that you got beat up, but you care that, he won't break the hold? A little weird psychology, if you ask me. That sounds like WCW doing WCW things. Woman was screaming at the top of her lungs nonstop, which really annoyed the piss out of me watching this. And to be quite honest with you, I think my wife's sensory issues have rubbed off on me because she can't stand noises. She don't like my chewing. If I watch wrestling and the girls are screaming and she's in the room, she don't like that either. Yeah, that's my wife. Love you, honey. Flair got some color thanks to Savage, which was a rarity during this period in WCW when blood just wasn't allowed. It wasn't a thing. At one point, Savage almost pulled off Flair's trunks as he was trying to escape the cage, which received a huge reaction. Apparently, the folks in St. Petersburg like white butt cheeks, especially Ric Flair's. That follows up with Nature Boy crotching himself on the top rope. Savage goes for the cover. The Rev counts to 2, but the bell rings, which sounds like it was a little mistiming from our timekeeper. Schiavone, though, I'll give him credit. Good comeback, reminding the viewers that the ref counted for 2. So, good cover-up from Schiavone. He's always good for those. Flair tries escaping again. Macho pulls his trunks down, but YouTube blurred his butt cheeks. So, you didn't care if there was blood, but you cared about butt cheeks. So, anyhow, not that I wanted to see them to begin with, because I didn't. And then WCW all of a sudden realized, oh shit, we got a guy bleeding. So the hard camera cuts away further and further to take away from showing the blood. A little too late there, pal. Woman on the outside pulls out a powdery substance, goes to throw it in Savage's face through the chain link fence, but he ducks. Then we see Miss Elizabeth running over to the cage door, handing Ric Flair her shoe, who uses it to nail Savage in the face and get the win at 19 minutes. Your new WCW World Heavyweight Champion, woo, Ric Flair. Elizabeth is celebrating with Woman on the outside as Hogan arrives to chase them off and save his mega power brother, Macho Man Dude. Flair and Anderson, the girls, they head back up the aisle. Hogan and referees help Savage to the back. I thought this was a fun match. I really did. Like I said, these two have never disappointed. WrestleMania 8, they've had some wars in WCW. I mean, I really enjoyed this match from these two. I've never seen it before, and I felt like I wasn't going to be disappointed, and thank you. You did not disappoint me, Randy and Rick. All right, backstage, Mean Gene. He's with the Hulkster to discuss what just went down. And to discuss his upcoming cage match with the Giant. Hogan reveals that there won't be any referee. It's unsanctioned, and the only way to win is to escape the cage. All right, so they kind of, created some different rules for each cage match. Flair and Savage was pinfall, submission, or escape the cage. Hogan and Giant was just escape the cage. So I kind of appreciate the urgency to create something different for each cage match. Which leads us to our main event. Hulk Hogan against the Giant with Jimmy Hart and Taskmaster in his corner inside of a steel cage. This is a standard Hogan big man monster match, but it's inside of a cage. It's not terrible. It's a simple and effective formula, but in 1996, it was starting to become outdated. Even the crowd wasn't into it, as they used to be, a few years prior. Even Hogan's comeback, his usual comeback where he's shaking his head and he does the point with the "you," that got a lukewarm reaction from the audience. Hogan would slam the Giant's head into the cage, pillar to post, followed by a big boot. He cupped the air to signal the body slam. Then he body slams the Giant. A couple of big leg drops, and the Giant no-sells it. Stops Hogan from exiting the cage. Both would fight up on top, with Hogan shoving Giant back down into the ring as he escapes the cage for the win at 15 minutes and 4 seconds. Your winner, Hulkamania, brother. The Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan's on the outside, nails Hogan with a chair, which leads to Hogan chasing Sullivan into the cage with a chair and ready to pounce until the Dungeon of Doom arrive, and Hogan fights them off with a chair. All of them putting Hogan over. I mean, this was pathetic. I mean, Hogan nails every single one of them with a chair, and they all retreat. And then the Loch Ness Monster. That's right, you heard me. The Loch Ness Monster. Some fucking hillbilly in gigantic overalls, calling him the Loch Ness Monster, marches down to the ring, tries to enter the cage, but the Dungeon of Doom holds him off. Like, no, he's too much for you, brother, especially with a chair. Not all 12 of us can beat him, and you have no shot yourself. This ending, it just looks silly. And as usual, it's a pay-per-view. If it's Hogan at the end, Hogan must pose because that's what he does. And that does it. That's the end of this Super Brawl recap here for all of you from 1996. I'll be honest with you. I'd give this this was a solid pay-per-view overall. It wasn't terrible. I'd give this a B- to a C. I'm going to give this a C+. Yeah, I'm going to give this a C+. Solid storyline progression and in-ring, action definitely deserves a C+ for me. So, yeah. If you want to watch it, great. It's over on YouTube on the WCW Vault channel, Super Brawl 6. Go check it out. So, all right, that about does it for this episode of Kicking Out at 2. We're in WrestleMania season, and I thought next episode I'm gonna have a WrestleMania themed episode for you. It's going to be the return of Randomania. That's right. A couple years ago, I brought you some random WrestleMania discussions and facts and little trivia. And you know what? I'm going to do it again for all of you as we get in the thick of WrestleMania season here on Kicking Out at 2. So with that being said, it's about that time we officially put this one down for the 3 count, and we will see you all next time.